You guys are saying, Amina, what did you like? What did you like? Not much. Hey, what's up you guys? My name's Mina. Welcome to my channel, Mina Reads, and today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in January 2022. And before we get into it, I do just want to say a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Book of the Month. Book of the Month is an online subscription service for readers, and how it works is that each month their team vets hundreds of books and provides you with a carefully curated selection of new and early release titles so that you can spend more time reading and less time researching. I absolutely love Book of the Month. Been working with them for a really long time. I think their selections are always really interesting and unique, and there's just something for every kind of reader, no matter what kind of genre you're really into, and I just love them. They're really great. One of my favorite things about them is that it's really a risk-free service, so if any month the selections don't stick out to you, you can very easily skip a month at any time and you won't be charged. Also, they just have the best prices for new release hardcover fiction, and you can get your first box for $9.99 with the code MINAREADS. So check them out in the link in my description, and I'm going to let you know the titles for February, which are all really exciting, and I'm actually like super stoked for all of them. So the first one we have is The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, and this is about a couple who seems to have it all on the surface until the wife cheats, and then they decide to go to this really controversial therapist who recently lost her license, but she is known to be able to fix marriages in 10 sessions or less. And this is going to be a thriller. I'm sure there's going to be some twists and some turns, and it just sounds interesting, so I'm excited about this one. Then we have Peach Blossom Spring by Melissa Fu, and this is a multi-generational epic that follows a mother and son as they journey from China to America. So then we have A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, and this is about a reluctant hero who is drawn back to his home island because of a string of mysterious disappearances. Then we have Don't Cry For Me by Daniel Black, and essentially about a father who is estranged from his young gay son. He's on his deathbed and feeling a lot of regret, so this is a epistolary novel about the letters that he sends to his son to make amends for, you know, their strained relationship. And I really love epistolary novels. I love letters and everything in stories, and so I am really into this, and it sounds like it'll be a really heartbreaking and heartrending kind of stories. Finally, we have Vladimir by Julia May Jones, and this is about a female professor and her husband who is under investigation for a string of inappropriate relationships with his students. An incandescent debut about marriage and motherhood, art and love, and the temptation to see just how close you can get to the fire without being burned. It sounds really, really interesting. I'm kind of obsessed with the cover. I think it's a really interesting cover, and the tagline is, "When I was a child, I loved old men, and I could tell they also loved me," and it just sounds so disturbing and so interesting, so I have to read it. So if any of these titles sound interesting to you, be sure to check out the link in my description and use the code MINAREADS to get your first box for $9.99. So yeah, let's get into these books. We're gonna start off with the thrillers that I read this month because I did read a few. I did a thriller vlog. You can check it out on my channel if you'd like. But basically, I have just been feeling like I'm kind of in a reading rut, so I thought that maybe the key to getting out of my rut, to getting out of this slump, would be to try some different genres, you know, something that's outside of my usual comfort zone, and maybe that will help me, you know, get back into the reading groove and like find new and exciting things to love and enjoy. But I was very, very incorrect about that, and yeah. So the first book that I'm going to tell you about is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This book comes highly recommended by everybody and their mother in the book community, but I'm sorry to say, this shit was ass. It was not good. Okay, so in my opinion, I found this to be incredibly boring. The main character, Jules, is really, really dull to read from. And I am definitely a character-driven reader. And I find that with most thrillers that I've read thus far, the protagonist tends to not really be a particularly interesting individual, and their inner monologue is not interesting, and they're also usually not very smart. And I would say that all of that applies to our main character, Jules, here. So Jules is a woman. She's recently lost her job. She also recently broke up with her boyfriend, and so now she's without an income or without a house, so she needs to, you know, find some income, find some place to stay. She ends up seeing this ad for a place called the Bartholomew, which is this apartment building that houses like the rich and famous. She would be a house sitter, and she's gonna get paid like this exorbitant amount of money weekly just to be a house sitter here. So she, you know, jumps on this opportunity, and the opportunity seems incredibly sus. And then things start going awry when one of her house sitting friends ends up going missing, and she is on the hunt for her, trying to find out where her friend went. So here's what I'm gonna say about this. I found this book to be so incredibly boring, and as I was reading, I was forgetting things about it. Like, it was just that forgettable. It's just something about the book, something about the way it was written, something about the way the story was being told, or maybe about Jules as a protagonist, that just really did not grip me. So I didn't care about anything that was happening. I think that this book has some interesting things to say about like financial inequality and how the rich suck, eat the rich, etc, etc. Those elements of the story were like vaguely interesting, and that social commentary that was made was kind of interesting, but I just feel like as a story, as a mystery, it wasn't good. Protagonist, she was boring as hell, so it just didn't give, and I didn't like it. So next for that video, we read why am I saying we? It wasn't a collaborative effort, it was me. I read it. The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. So this book is about this therapist named Theo, and essentially there's like this famous murderess, and she has been confined to this psychological facility, and he wants to become her new therapist. He's like a little bit obsessed with her. She basically murdered her husband, and it was like huge news, and so he thinks that her case is really interesting because after murdering her husband, she just never spoke another word, and so Theo finds her really interesting. So he wants to be Captain Save-A-Ho, and he's gonna fix her. And I thought that this book had a lot of potential. I think that Alex Michaelides, like, his writing style is very good and very gripping, and I really liked the main character Theo's narration. I thought that Theo was a really interesting character, and as much as, you know, he's a therapist and he's trying to fix everybody and be Bob the Builder, he definitely has a few issues of his own, and so I found him to be really interesting to read about. Where the story really went off the rails for me is that, you know, Theo, in being this woman's therapist, he's trying to uncover the secrets of this murder that she did. Why did she murder her husband? What were her motivations? Why doesn't she speak? And so he goes around like talking to her family and stuff, and that investigation element of the story just sucked. It just felt kind of silly. Like, he's a therapist, right? So I expected this book to be more so like a psychological exploration of his relationship with this woman Alicia, and instead it's just him like playing detective, and that's boring as hell, and I didn't care about that. And then the twist was very like, it just ended up being very disappointing. Like, it had a lot of elements here that I really thought that I would end up loving. I like the writing style. I thought that Theo was an interesting guy, maybe, but the story just didn't end up going anywhere interesting. So yeah, I also gave this 2 stars. But in better news, I did end up finding a book that I really liked, which is They Never Learned by Lane Fargo. So They Never Learned is also a thriller, but I would say that this one isn't really a mystery. There's not really a mystery that you're trying to solve here. We have 2 POVs that we're following. One's name is Scarlett. She is a professor at this university, and she also is like a vigilante serial killer. And so she kills shitty men on campus who like assault women and stuff like that. It's her thing. She's a bit like Dexter, you know. So she's a serial killer. And then we have this girl named Carly on campus who is a little bit obsessed with her roommate, and it's just about her and like her college experience being kind of obsessed with her roommate. So we're following these 2 different plot threads. I found this book to just be so interesting because I love Scarlett. She's a serial killer, and I just found her inner monologue to be very interesting. She's really snarky and sarcastic, and I don't know, I just found her to be really exciting to read from. And I also like the other POV, Carly. Carly is kind of in love with, obsessed with her roommate, and it really reminded me of this really shitty, terrible thriller movie called The Roommate that I'm kind of obsessed with, and it reminded me of that. So I was having a really good time with this, and I will say that this one is not necessarily a mystery. It's more so a thriller because you're hoping, or not hoping, but like the hope is that Scarlett is going to keep getting away with murder because some people are coming onto campus to investigate this string of like suspicious deaths on the campus, which are all Scarlett's fault. And so, you know, the thriller aspect is coming from, is Scarlett going to be caught, yes or no? And then, you know, how are Scarlett and Carly's stories intertwined? And I just really liked this. I enjoyed everything about it. I had a great time with it, and I thought that it was really interesting. So really what I ended up learning from this thriller reading experience is that I don't actually care about mysteries, and I don't want to read a mystery thriller. That just doesn't do anything for me. But I do like reading about like complex, unlikable protagonists who maybe do crimes. I think that that's something that I'm interested in, but mystery thriller, no. That's just not going to be for me. So if you have any recommendations that you feel are like kind of similar to They Never Learn, be sure to leave those for me in the comments. I would love to know about them. Alright, so next I read some manga, so I'll tell you about those. I read this one called How Do We Relationship, and it's about this sapphic relationship. These two girls, they go to college, and they meet in like this orientation group basically, and they decide that they're going to be friends. So they strike up a friendship, and once they realize that they're both lesbians, they actually just kind of like unilaterally decide that they're going to be girlfriends, and they're just gonna start dating and see where it goes. And this was like, I don't know how I feel about it, because it was kind of cute. I really like the art style in it. Art style was very adorable. I thought that their relationship was like kind of cute. They had like an opposites attract romance vibe going on. But where it lost me is that the one girl is like hypersexual, I'd say, and the other girl is like a virgin and she's not quite ready to have sex yet. And the story just makes this whole big to-do about like, you know, this whole like miscommunication between them about their sex life, and I just didn't care about any of that. Like, it was so boring. I felt like it was interesting. There was like a cool friend group, and like, I don't know, like it had potential, but I just didn't like it that much. So I'd give it like a 2.5 stars maybe. I might continue with the series because my library has like all of the volumes, so maybe I'll keep reading it. But like, this first volume just didn't give. It had a lot of potential, but the subject matter that it focused on was just very boring to me. So hopefully next time will be better. And the other manga that I read was volume 1 of Yonah of the Dawn. Yonah of the Dawn is like a fantasy manga, and it's about this girl Yonah. She's this very pampered princess. Her father, the king, gives her everything that she wants, and basically what she ends up wanting in the beginning of this story is she wants to marry her cousin. And her father's like, well, he's your cousin, so no. And so Yonah's pretty upset about this, and some things happen. But the main thing that's going on here is that the king is betrayed and some people are trying to overthrow his rule, and so Yonah and her bodyguard Huck actually end up needing to flee the palace, and you know, they're running for their lives against these usurpers who are trying to kill them. But like, yeah, the thing that sticks out the most in my mind is that Yonah is in love with her cousin. Why? What purpose does it serve? I don't think that it really serves the purpose that it thinks it's serving, and I feel like it's extremely unnecessary aspect of the story. I don't know. Am I putting the effort in to buy more volumes of this? No. Oh wait, I just realized there's another thriller that I read that I didn't tell you about. Okay, so then I also read Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson. About this woman, she essentially is engaged to this really rich billionaire guy, and she kind of doesn't like him. Like, she's kind of ambivalent about him, but he's just like that kind of good on paper sort of dude. So she's like, I should just marry him. Like, he likes me, he's rich, why shouldn't I marry him? So she ends up going on her bachelorette weekend. She cheats on him. So she cheats on him, but she's like, you know, I'm going to tighten up. I'm getting married, you know, it's a shame, I feel bad, I regret it, but I'm not going to tell my fiance. So her and the fiance, they get married, they're going on their honeymoon, and the guy that she cheated with is actually there on the resort that they're on for their honeymoon. Now, this sounds, you know, this sounds dramatic, this sounds fun, it sounds juicy, right? Wrong. This book, like so many other thrillers, spends so much time spinning its wheels trying to be fucking ominous that it falls into the category of being boring as shit. And the plot twist in this was just so like, why? Like, I guess, but at the same time, why? So the first fantasy that I read in January was The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, and I didn't like this either. You guys are saying, Amina, what did you like? What did you like? Not much. Yeah. Not much. So I read The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, and yeah, I didn't enjoy it. The Unbroken is about this soldier named Terrain. She is a conscripted soldier. Her and her fellow conscripts have kind of been stolen from their homeland, and they, you know, work as soldiers for this imperialist kind of like French inspired country. And essentially Terrain and her fellow conscripts are sent back to the place that they're from, which is called Kozel. They're sent back there to quell a rebellion that's going on. And so basically a lot of stuff is going on within Terrain's unit where people are feeling, you know, that their loyalties are shifting and they're not sure if they should be loyal to the Kozali rebels, or if they should be loyal to this like imperial power that they work for. And similarly, Terrain is undergoing these like conflicted emotions about what she should do, who she's loyal to, and she ends up working for this princess named Luca, who is trying to prove to her uncle that she is like strong enough to be the sovereign. So she becomes the governor of Kozel, and she's trying to she's making an effort to quell this rebellion, and if she can quell the rebellion, that will prove that she is like a leader, you know, worthy of her place as the sovereign of whatever this French inspired country is called. I can't remember now. And yeah, so there's kind of like a romance between Luca and Terrain a little bit. They like each other, they're attracted to each other, whatever. There's a rebellion going on, there's some political intrigue going on. But listen, I didn't like it. For a number of reasons. I'm going to say that I didn't like either of the protagonists, Luca or Terrain. I didn't find either of their POVs to be particularly interesting. I also felt like Terrain as a character was way too changeable and irritating. She just felt like she had no convictions, and that was very frustrating to me. The rebellion that's going on, which should have been, you know, very kind of action-packed, and it should have been giving a lot to the story. I feel like it just felt very much like it was in the background, and like we really didn't get to see all that much of it, and so that was also boring. I just felt like the pacing in this story was odd, and so there was nothing happening. There's a lot happening, but there's also nothing happening, and I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it at all. It's just not my kind of fantasy, I'll say. I think that the author is like a good writer. I think that the world building was well done, but I didn't care about the characters or the plot. And when I'm reading a fantasy, I want to really care about the characters, or I want to really care about the plot, and I cared about neither, so 2 stars. Then I read The Killing Moon, which I also gave 2 stars, and this is by N.K. Jemisin. I read this for a read-along with the Busy Bee Book Club with my friend Erin and a few other co-hosts. I will leave the link to our, what is it called? Our book club discussion. But to summarize this, it's about this country called Gujarat. It's basically it's kind of like Egyptian inspired. So it's about this country, Gujarat. They have this religion in which there are these particular priests called gatherers, and gatherers go around like killing people and harvesting their dreams. And when they harvest the dreams, they give the dreams to the goddess, and it like powers the goddess. It feeds her, and you know, it helps them send people off to a peaceful death. And so basically this is about some corruption going on within the gatherers priesthood. So there's some corruption going on there. There's some political intrigues happening, and there's some political intrigues happening with the Prince of Gujarat, as well as some outside stuff going on. There are other countries who find the practices of Gujarat and the gatherers to be barbaric, and so there's some people like spying on them, and stuff and things are happening there. But this was another book where I found that I really didn't care about the plot. I found the pacing of this to be really a struggle for me, and I didn't care about the plot. I thought that the world building was really interesting, and the concept of this dream magic and like the dream gathering and this like magical priesthood was all very interesting to me, and I liked those elements so much, but I just felt like they were not interestingly executed, in my opinion. I will say that I think that N.K. Jemisin has a really beautiful writing style, and I did listen to the audiobook for some of the parts of this, so I found the audiobook to be very well narrated, and you can tell from the audio that, you know, N.K. Jemisin is just a really beautiful writer. Her prose is excellent, and her imagination is beautiful. But did I like this story? No. Did I like the characters? No. Did I give a fuck about the plot? No. Was it well paced? No. So I gave this 2 stars. But I did end up reading a fantasy that I actually did enjoy this month, and that was She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. This book was fucking amazing, and I'm so glad that I gave it a second chance, because when the book was coming out, I did apply for an ARC, and I got it on NetGalley, and I started reading it, and I got like 70% of the way through, and I was like, you know, I just really don't like this book, so I'm gonna DNF it. So I DNF'd it like 70% into the book, and I told myself that I DNF'd it because it was boring, and I didn't like it. And then my friend Erin read it, and she really loved it, and I was like, you know what, let me give it another shot. So I read it, and I gave it another shot, and it's 5 stars. One of my favorite books, perhaps of all time. So who was I? Who was I a few months ago when I read this? Because those are 2 very, very different reactions to the same story. So interesting. But let me tell you what this book is actually about. So She Who Became the Sun, we're following this character named Zhu Zhangba. She grows up in a famine, and her family is basically all kind of dying off because of this famine. And she has a brother, and her brother, he got his fortune told once when he was really young, and it said that he is destined for greatness. So when he dies, Zhu decides that she's going to assume his identity. And so the name Zhu Zhangba actually belonged to her brother, but she takes it for herself. And she decides that she is going to become great in his stead because he's dead, she's alive, she's going to make something of it. So she passes herself off as a man for basically most of her life. She ends up joining this monastery where she grows up and is educated. And the story kind of goes on from there, where Zhu is trying to make herself great, and she's trying to figure out, you know, what she's going to do in life. And we get to see her making a lot of different decisions and growing into this political force. And Zhu is just really fucking interesting, like one of the most interesting characters I have ever read about. So then we have this other character named Ouyang, and Ouyang is a general of this army. He works with like the Mongols, but he actually is a non-Ren person. So he feels a lot of resentment towards the Mongols that he works for, and so there's some stuff and things going on with his storyline, and his storyline is really interesting, and he has a lot of love for this man named Essen, who is like his prince that he works for. And there's a lot of like pining and angst and yearning involved in this story. It's just really, really interesting. So this is a historical fantasy epic, and I loved it so much. I just think that Shelley Parker Chan is amazing because the story spans like a very large amount of years. I want to say it spans like 20 years, maybe a little bit less than that, but like a whole bunch of years pass, and I feel like she condenses the story well to the point where you get all of the important stuff, you get all of the story beats, all of the feelings, all of the emotions, but it never really feels like the story is slow or like it's spinning its wheels. Like it always feels like something is happening, and I just love the prose in this. Like it was gorgeous. I love the characters. I found them to be so fascinating. The character dynamics and relationships were iconic. The politics, the intrigue, it was just all there for me. Very good. Like this book is just excellent on so many levels, and also there's fisting in it. I loved it. It was great. 5 stars. Now let's get into the romance that I read this month. God, I feel like I've been talking for so long, and I feel like we're also nowhere near done talking about all the books that I read. So, romance, where should we start? Let's have a little look-see on my list here. Alright, so the first one that I read was Damaged by Only James, and this is a part of the Necessary Evil series, and I just knew that this was going to be a hit because I really was enjoying the Necessary Evil series in December when I read it. I was loving it. I was having a great time. So I just knew that it was going to be a hit. It was going to be a banger. I was going to love it. And I didn't. It's set in college. It's like a college romance about this guy named Dimitri. And Dimitri is a psychopath. I don't know. Basically, he has this guy, this like his childhood friend that he really is obsessed with, and he's basically hunted him down to college. And this childhood friend is in a string of really horrible, emotionally and physically abusive relationships, and Dimitri is like, why be with them when you could be with me? And one day, they end up in this situation where they kill the childhood friend. His name's Arlo. They kill Arlo's boyfriend, and now they're trying to figure out how they're going to get away with murder. And this is kind of attached to the rest of the Necessary Evil series because Dimitri's mother works with Thomas Mulvaney. So Thomas Mulvaney's sons help Dimitri and his new boyfriend Arlo get away with murder. And that's what's happening in this book. But I didn't like it. I didn't think it was well conveyed at all. I thought it was a really interesting concept, just as interesting and wild and off the wall as the rest of the Necessary Evil series, but I just felt like the vibes just weren't there. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't like the characters. I didn't think they were particularly interesting, and I didn't like their relationship dynamic. Not that there was anything, I'm not gonna say not that there's anything wrong with it. There was a little bit of stalking involved, but like, it wasn't that it was like, oh my god, the relationship is so problematic and icky. Like, it wasn't wrong, but it just wasn't right. Like, I just didn't like it. I just wasn't interested in it. And so I was really bored the whole time. And then, like, they're trying to get away with murder. Like, I didn't give a fuck about any of that. And it just didn't work for me whatsoever. So, yeah. I feel that I may have come to the end of my Necessary Evils era because I also tried to read Head Case by Only James in the Necessary Evil series, and I DNF'd it. So, my Necessary Evils era just might be over because it's just not giving anymore. And then I read Perfect Matcha by Erin McClellan. So Camden has been in love with his best friend Theo Punch for years and years and years, and he just never has told him, because Theo previously dated one of their other friends, and that did not go very well, and they're just estranged now. And so Camden is terrified that if he shoots his shot, the same thing will happen between him and Theo. So this story has a lot of pining in it, and it's really cute at first. So I was like, oh, this is really cute, you know, Camden really likes him and blah blah, and it was cool. But then we get Theo's point of view, and Theo's point of view is where it all goes off the rails. So basically, Theo wants a boyfriend. So Theo wants a boyfriend, but he hasn't had sex in a really long time, and he hasn't dated in a really long time, and he has a crush on this guy who like owns a sex shop and is into kink stuff, and Camden is like mutual friends with this guy. So what happens is that Thomas is like, oh my god, like, you should set me up with your friend, the kink guy. You should set me up with him, and you need to coach me on like how to date him, and like how to know about kinky stuff and sex toys. So then Camden and Theo ended this weird entanglement where they're like playing with sex toys together and like doing stuff and things that's very much not platonic. But then Theo is not realizing that Camden likes him sexually and romantically, and Camden is still not telling Theo that he likes him sexually and romantically, and it just didn't give. This book didn't work for me because I hate reading romances where the characters are like super oblivious about what's going on, and it's clear to me that with all of this stuff that y'all got going on, y'all relationship is not anywhere near as platonic as y'all are pretending it is. And so the extent to which Theo is oblivious about how many boundaries are being crossed here, and oblivious to Camden's feelings for him, just got annoying and frustrating, and I hated to see it. And it also felt to me like Camden really liked, and not only liked, but was like deeply in love with Theo and like devoted to him and all this other stuff, which was just like, you know, his passion. I feel like his passion was not matched by Theo's energy. Theo was very preoccupied and thinking about other stuff the whole book, and so to me it didn't feel like a romance that I was rooting for, because Theo didn't seem like he liked Camden like that. Like, he didn't seem like he was feeling the vibes, you know? So I just didn't like this romance. I also read Huckleberry Finn this month for one of my American fiction classes, and I certainly did read it, and I learned that I have a deep-seated hatred for Tom Sawyer as a character. My most hated literary figure perhaps ever. He was the worst. I mean, he vexed my spirit so deeply, and he just really disturbed me, you know. I hated that guy. I really did. But beyond that, like, yeah, I read Huckleberry Finn. It was fine. And I read this other one-star romance. It's like actually an erotic novella. It's called King Size by Jessica Kane. This shit sucked. It's basically this like supposedly medieval type setting. This girl, she's a princess. Her parents just died, so now she's the queen, and this guy is like her bodyguard, and they start fucking. I didn't like this. I didn't think it was hot. It's mostly just erotica and porn, but I didn't think that it was hot by any stretch of the imagination. So anyway, 1 star, didn't like that. But getting into some stuff that I did enjoy, we're gonna round out the video with some stuff that I really did enjoy. So the first one I'm going to mention is Act Like You Mean It by Shay Sanders. This is a Hollywood fake dating celeb type romance story where we have this guy, and suddenly I can't remember what his name is, but basically the dude, he is an actor. His fan base is primarily black women, but he has never been seen with a black woman romantically, and so his fans are like speculating that he doesn't actually like black women, or he's not attracted to them, and it's kind of having like a negative impact on his image. So his PR people decide that he should just have like a fake PR relationship with this like beautiful black socialite that's really popular at the time. Sparks fly. Their relationship is fake, but then is it really? It gets deeper. They're really into each other. This is a really sweet romance. It's very cute. It's really steamy. It was like a fun time. I had a good time with it. It was very easy, quick and easy to get through. The characters were really likable. I enjoyed their romance. I was rooting for them, and yeah, so it was a nice time. I really enjoyed it. So then I read The Replacements by Shea Sanders, and oh my god, new favorite romance alert. This shit was amazing. So The Replacements is about this girl named Savannah, and basically Savannah, she is a housewife. She's been married to this executive for a number of years, and her husband is cheating on her. Basically, she finds out that he's been cheating on her, and she's none too happy about it, so she's decided that she's leaving him. Obviously, wise thing. But since she's a housewife and she doesn't really have like that much money of her own, she decides she needs a job before she can like figure out the rest of her exit strategy. So she kind of finesses her husband and uses his connections to get herself a job as the executive assistant for this CEO named Taurus. And basically sparks fly between her and Mr. Bossman Taurus. And this was a very, very fun, very steamy workplace boss employee forbidden romance type. I ate it up. Every last bit of it, I ate it up. It was good. I love the characters. I love their dynamic. Taurus, he's an asshole. If you really like asshole heroes, you will enjoy him. He is so shitty. I loved him. And Savannah, she's just that bitch. She's just that girl. Like, we love her. We stan. She was an icon and a legend. She was the moment. Her and Taurus, they just worked well together. They were so fun. I love this book. It had kind of all of the tropes that I like and that I enjoy and that I have fun with. So 5 stars. We love to see it. I think this will be the last book that I have to talk to you guys about. And it is Real by Kennedy Ryan. So Real is a workplace forbidden romance as well. It's about this woman Neva, who is a Broadway actress, and this guy Cannon, who is a Hollywood director. And essentially Cannon, he goes to a Broadway show with his friend, and he sees Neva, and he just has to cast her as the lead in this new movie project that he's working on. Neva is going to be the star. And so yeah, this is kind of like a forbidden romance between them because he doesn't want to get involved with an actress on his set. He feels like it's so unprofessional, but he just is like really entranced by her, and she is like feeling him heavily, and their relationship is just so beautiful. And there's a lot more to the story than just like their romance. We get to learn a lot about this blues singer that they're making the biopic about, which was really cool. I loved her. There's like elements of the script that they're working on in here. Beautiful, amazing, iconic. We also have Neva. She is chronically ill. She has lupus, and so we get to see her navigating like her lupus diagnosis, and I thought that was really interesting. And the story is just really beautiful and really emotional. The characters are so compelling. The writing, the prose is just beautiful. There's so many amazing quotes in here, and I have like a bunch of tabs in here. My tabs are really ugly, so like don't judge them, but I have so many tabs in here and like so many underlined like quotes and everything because this book is just amazing, and I loved it so much, and I would highly recommend it to any of my romance girlies because it just was iconic. It was amazing, and I'm so happy that I finally read it. It's been getting recommended to me for months, and so I'm glad that I read it, and it was amazing, and I loved it. So 5 stars. So yeah, those are all the books that I had to tell you about. Leave me a camera emoji for real if you made it all the way to the end of the video. I'd love to see who stayed. But thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in my next one, hopefully. Bye guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and a special thank you to all of my wonderful patrons.